Traders, how are you? Marcello here, founder of the Day Trading Academy, co-founder of Speed Up Trader, where you guys can come and apply to use our money live for just a process of $120 with accounts starting at $25,000. Today we're doing the recap of what happened in the markets last week. It's been a great week. We did an interview with a trader from Bolivia. You guys know I've been living in Latin America, Medellin, for quite a while now. We had tons of traders all over the Latin American region. Did a video with a Bolivian that just went live, did about 3.33% his first day live. Full disclosure, obviously he can bust his account tomorrow, right? But he did a great job the first day. And I also did an interview with a trader named Felipe from Chile. And he, first time live in 3 weeks, was able to withdraw $1,200 from our account at SpeedUp. So the reason why I'm explaining to you, if you guys want to hear that interview, if you guys want to hear it, I'll dub it in English. I'll put it with English subtitles on the bottom. So if you guys want to see it, let me know, and we'll get that done maybe the next week or two so you guys can see that. It's really, really exciting to see, to give you guys an opportunity to be able to, trade those live accounts. So overall this week, U.S. investors pulled out the largest net amount of assets from mutual funds and ETFs. The whole domestic stocks in over 5 years last week. Even the U.S. equity market hit record highs. So if you guys remember, I did a video about the immoral game that CEOs are playing, where the CEOs are basically selling their stocks while the company is buying it. So essentially what's happening now is that we have a situation where there's a lot more people taking money out of the market, especially quote unquote mutual funds and ETFs. So the smart money is getting their money out while, I always say, especially on the Spanish side when I do events, the cows are now being led to slaughter because the market's being in record highs. Everybody thinks that it's going to keep going higher. And this is where generally newer people that aren't as experienced pile their money in and literally get decimated when the market goes down. So be careful with what you guys are doing. Always make sure you do your research. But I would definitely be extremely cautious right now with certain kinds of stocks. There's other things that I'm doing. I did a video for you guys about what I think about the silver market, which is what I'm mostly trading right now. Obviously, remember, we're not trading advisors. We don't trade people's money. Make sure you do your own research. This is for educational purposes only. Cover my butt there with the regulators. So this is the most that has been pulled out since February 2014. 25.1 billion outflows from domestic stock funds were the largest since the February 2014, where they pulled out 25.2 billion. So just a lot of money literally leaving the market, even though it's continuing to go up. That's definitely not a good sign. U.S. domestic stocks increased 10 trillion since the Trump election in 2016. The benchmark Dow has gained 48.5% since the election. S&P 500 went up 40.5%, and the NASDAQ 58.3%. And I always like to remind you guys, whatever you guys like politically, whether you love Trump, hate Trump, love Obama, hate Obama, right, left, up, down, black, white, purple, doesn't matter. I always try just to give you the news, the facts, tell you what it means, not get political, because I think most of us are really tired of seeing all the political stuff online, right? Wednesday, U.S. markets surged higher on the stronger likelihood that Fed was going to cut the interest rates in the next month or the next opportunity to be able to go ahead and cut rates. The NASDAQ surged 0.90%, reaching an all-time intraday high, followed by the S&P reaching the 3,000 for the first time, and the Dow surged 0.60 to a new all-time high. On Friday, the all U.S. stocks indices reached a record closing high, obviously because of the solid expectations of the rate cut by the Fed. For the week, the Dow went up 1.52, first time at 27,000, and then at 27,332. S&P 500 up 0.80, first time at 3,000, 3,013, and the NASDAQ went up 1% at 8,244. International markets, European markets mostly lower. The German DAX down 2%, Istanbul down 2.61%. The Swiss and Russia also went down by more than 2%. That almost didn't come out right. Latin American, Canadian markets are the Argentinian Merval in Latin America was the biggest winner at 2.39%, and the Mexican exchange was the biggest loser at 1.78%. African and Middle Eastern markets, Nigeria, the biggest economy in Africa, was the biggest loser at 2.46%, and the Saudi Arabia was the biggest winner in the region at 1.37%. Asian and Australian markets are mostly lower. The SEC in China went down by 2.73%. The Sensex in India 2.01% negative. A lot of news in Bitcoin this week, a huge amount of volatility, 9% up Tuesday overnight. Bitcoin held to the highest in 2 weeks at that point, almost hitting 13,000. It was about 12,833. That obviously is because of the whole Facebook Libra situation, where everybody thinks that this is going to bring a lot of mainstream and legitimacy to the crypto world. On Thursday, Bitcoin dips near 11% to 11,389.80 cents. And that obviously extends the losses from the Fed Chairman Powell saying that there should be a halt on Libra due to, quote unquote, privacy, security, and money laundering issues. Japanese crypto exchange Bitcoin suspended all of its services after there was a hack, and it lost $32 million. $23 million belonged to customer funds and $9.2 million to the exchange. And Bitcoin gains for the week was 5.72%. It reached 11,854 with 20 cents. In financial and banking news, the Turkish lira dipped as much as 3% after President Erdogan of Turkey let go his central bank governor. Obviously, this is undermining what should be the independence of the monetary policy in Turkey. If you guys don't know, central banks are actually privately owned. They're not owned by the government, even though that's kind of what they make it seem like. So keep that in mind. If you guys didn't know about that, let me know. I can do a video for you. The Turkish lira is down 8% for the year. And Mexico's moderate finance minister, Carlos Urzura, resigned on Tuesday, which shocked a lot of investors and the markets, citing extremism. He wrote a letter talking about that. They quickly named another well-regarded deputy minister to be able to replace him. British pound is at a 2-year low versus the U.S. dollar. The race to replace Prime Minister May produces fresh anxiety over Brexit. The UK economy grew an amazing 0.3% in May versus a 0.4% decline in April. Boris Johnson, which is the what everybody considers kind of the lead in the pack, so to speak, about the person who's going to replace May, that he could take out the UK out of the EU by the 31st of October without a deal on trade. Many economists are now starting to worry about the US debt is going to bring higher interest costs, increasing pressure on the future government to make deep spending cuts, or even causing the US to default on spending cuts. Could wreak havoc on the global markets if the US actually stops paying its debts. Overall, there's a total $22.4 trillion in debt, its highest level ever, about $68,000 for every American citizen. Crude oil futures up 3.68% for the week at 60.36. International crude, which is called Brent, is up 3.11% at 66.88. Global oil prices moved higher on Tuesday. Armed Iranian boats tried to unsuccessfully seize a British oil tanker off the Persian Gulf. Iran also warned that foreign power should stay away from the Persian Gulf. There's also a tropical storm Barry. If you guys haven't heard of that, moving through Louisiana, they had to shut off a lot of the drilling rigs, obviously in the Gulf of Mexico, right? The ones that are all the water, and also refineries that refine the oil. So that put a lot of upward pressure on prices. U.S. crude exports are also gaining a lot of traction in Europe. Ukraine is even starting to get some of the U.S. crude at the expense, obviously, of Russia supplies. Now, this is good for Europe and the U.S. because obviously U.S. gets to sell its oil somewhere, but they're also politically not able to be as reliant on Russia anymore, especially Europe, because Russia essentially has it by its hand because they give it not a lot, but a very important portion of their natural resources to Europe. So this is, depending on why you look at it, obviously for me it's always better, whether it's Russia or Brazil or whoever, to be independent, right? And this further undercuts Russian influence in Europe, especially in the eastern part of the region. Precious metals for the week are higher. Gold is up 1.06% to 1,416. Silver's up 0.92% to 1529. Central banks are upping their gold purchase in 2019 as well as the economic growth slows and trade and geopolitical tensions rise. People's Bank of China said, if you want to believe what they say, raised its reserve for the 7th month in June, adding 10.3 tons following the inflow of almost 74 tons in the 6 months through May. The reason why I say if you want to believe what they do is because China is one of the biggest it's one of the biggest producers of gold in the world, and it's literally illegal to export it. So literally the Chinese government buys it all. So they probably have a lot more gold than what they're actually officially reporting. Poland is also saying that they more than doubled their assets, gold assets over the year last year, becoming a top hoarder of gold, of gold in Central Europe. The gold reserves of the National Bank of Poland have risen by 125.7 tons, an increase of over 100 tons. In political news, Greece is Europe's most indebted nation. Saw the opposition conservatives win the election for president. The quote-unquote called New Democracy return to power. They're basically saying that they're going to cut taxes. They want business taxes to be at 20% in 2 years from 29% currently. And they also want to lower individual incomes, slash property taxes, major round of deregulation, and focus on investment and growth. Argentina has some good news for the current president, meaning that a new poll says that he's going to win re-election by a very slim 2% differential against the Peronist candidate Alberto Fernandez in the October election, which the vice president is Cristina Fernandez, the previous president of Argentina. In economic news, further indication of a slowing global economy is starting to affect the Singapore's economy. There's been an unexpected dip in their growth due to the fact that they're very reliant on exports. Their annualized GDP shrank by 3.4% in quarter 2 compared to quarter 1. It's the biggest decline since 2012. And obviously they're blaming mostly a slump in China's exports from a year ago and the trade war between the US and China. Brazil's economic ministry slashed its global economic growth as well from 0.8% 2.8% from 1.6%, blaming the weakness in quarter 2 following the economy's contraction in quarter 1. In corporate news, layoffs at Deutsche Bank, dramatic business overhaul. They're reducing their workforce by 18,000 as the CEO Suig states processes to eliminate roughly 1 in 5 jobs. I don't know if you guys saw the news as the executives are buying $1,500 suits. Literally, as they reported this, there were guys delivering the $1,500 suits, but don't worry, guys. We'll lay you off, but we'll get ours. Germany's BASF, which is the world's largest chemical producer, cuts the outlook for 2019, blaming the global auto industry and also ongoing conflict from the U.S. and China. The shares dipped 5.8%. Mercedes-Benz lost $1.8 billion in quarter 2, a dramatic decline from last year where they got $2.9 billion in profit. Their full year earnings are going to be far lower, they reported, than the $12.5 billion in profit they had 2018. Anything between recalls, legal issue, and a weak demand for cars is affecting their bottom line. In trade news, and I'm not mad at this. I normally don't like government intervention because I think the government essentially just steals our money and there's a bunch of corruption and things in government. But this I actually am not mad at. France's Senate passed a bill on Thursday to impose a new tax on large tech groups, people like Google and Facebook and Amazon. They're going to impose a 3% tax on revenue earned by large internet firms in France. It's going to apply for basically all companies of these kinds doing business in France, making money from people in France that have global revenue of over $845 million and $28 million in revenue in France. Now, this obviously is going to trigger Trump because there might be retaliatory U.S. tariffs against French goods. The UK's Prime Minister May's government is unveiling plans to tax 2% on global revenues for these companies as well. In technology, U.S. federal agencies have until the 13th of August to remove Chinese-made surveillance cameras. Obviously, they want to ban that. Congress wanted to do that to thwart the threat of spying by China. There's still thousands of devices still in place. Apple disabled the walkie-talkie app on Apple Watches. They found a security flaw. Again, someone else's iPhone conversation could actually be listened to without consent, and it's a second one now glitch that's reported on the eavesdropping front. In investment news, Apple's ongoing slowdown. In India, they've reported a 42% decline in iPhone shipments from quarter 1 from the year before. The full year estimate is going to be a 10 to 17% drop from 2018 and a 53% collapse from the peak shipment of 3.2 million in 2017, even though shares are still up 26% in 2019. Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic is up for an IPO. They made a deal with a company called Social Capital Hemisphere Holdings. They're going to pay $800 million for 49% of Virgin Galactic, and it's going to give them a lot of funds to be able to compete with Blue Origin and also SpaceX. Nintendo has now confirmed plans to shift manufacturing of its Switch platform to Vietnam from China. Now they're essentially where they outsource all of their production from. And international events, Iran is increasing its uranium enrichment from beyond the limit of the original agreement in 2015 that the U.S. came out of. They're moving much closer to weapons grade levels and are still calling for a diplomatic solution to the escalating crisis. Despite Chinese government criticism of the arms deal, United States is approving a possible sale to Taiwan of up to $202 billion of Abrams tanks, Stinger missiles, and related equipment, military equipment. Obviously, China doesn't like it. If you guys don't know why, because China still considers Taiwan to be part of China, whereas Taiwan is independent, they say. So there's a bit of a scuffle there because China says it's still part of China. In unusual facts this week, after 73 days in theaters, Disney's Avengers is now just $15 million away in sales from being the biggest the biggest movie of all time, which is going to surpass Avatar. I just checked the numbers yesterday, which was Thursday, the 11th of July, and they're $4 million away from reaching that feat. Endgame, the Avengers movie, was the fastest to 500 million worldwide, which was only 3 days. Marvel's Spider-Man, which was a co-op, a partnership between Sony and also Disney's Marvel Studios, hit 600 million in the first 10 days in theaters, and that partnership is going to have broad implications on the new future films in the franchise. And according to a nonpartisan U.S. Congressional Budget Office, very, very big tongue twister, they're raising the pay floor to $15 per hour in 2025. Is going to boost wages for 17 million American workers, but 1.3 million people are actually going to lose their jobs. Productions of the Volkswagen Beetle is finally going to end. What became a worldwide iconic car that became a blue-collar worker and middle class could afford in Germany, played a huge role in the economic resurgence of Germany after World War II by being a leading export, is finally going to be put to rest. So they're not going to produce it anymore. That's the news for this week, guys. Let me know if you guys want to hear the interview that I'll subtitle in English from Guido in Bolivia, and also Felipe that withdrew $1,200 from Speed Up. Super, super excited. We've had great success with Speed Up. Let me know if you guys want me to do that, and we'll see you next week.